Parish Inspector General's report released this morning shows entire families were living at volunteer fire stations in Lafitte, Barataria, and Crown Point.
The Jefferson Parish Inspector General says if public funds were used to provide primary housing for volunteer firefighters, that's a violation of the state constitution. Olivia Vidal has details on the latest OIG investigation out of Jefferson Parish and what was found.
The Jefferson Parish Office of Inspector General investigates after an anonymous tip alleged families, adults and children, were living at several fire volunteer stations in Lafitte, Barataria, and Crown Point. Now, the report released this morning revealed as many as 16 adults were living at 3 firehouses in the Lafitte area full-time, and that some of these volunteer firefighters identified the fire stations as their personal residences. However, the report could not prove the allegation of children living at the fire stations. This volunteer fire district is supported through public funds, generating about $773,000 a year in tax revenue for fire prevention services. In an interview with the fire chief, Linton Dewey, he confirmed there were people living full-time at these fire stations or had done so in the past. Of the people identified, 9 were volunteers. Chief Dewey says the only compensation they received was having a roof over their heads after Hurricane Ida, when some volunteers lost everything, but says those who were living at the stations bought their own necessities and food.
It helps us out with our rating. PIL, Property Insurance Association of Louisiana, states that if a volunteer fireman is at the station on duty while on call, what happens is that they're being credited as a paid firefighter.
We understood that they held a belief that it had an impact on insurance ratings, but we could not map any correlation between providing free housing to individuals to actually improving anyone's insurance rating.
Chief Dewey says a nationwide residential volunteer firefighter program exists and outlines volunteer firefighters staying at a station full-time to become paid firefighters. He admits in 5 instances that happened. He also says he knew about the OIG's investigation and admits this has been going on since before the pandemic. The report states the parish responded that, quote, full-time residency comports or agrees with the Lafitte, Barataria, Crown Point obligations under its current contract with the parish, but the OIG could not connect that to the value gained. The OIG recommends the volunteer fire district stop allowing individuals from residing full-time at the fire stations, including allowing firefighters' children from visiting the stations for prolonged visits or overnight. Back to you.